Hey team, welcome back to another episode of the Three Hamster Boys podcast. Today we've got something a little different, a little special for you.
Not special, just different.
It is special because this is our first episode of this kind of video we hope to have as a reoccurring.
Yeah, I think when we are like thinking about this podcast and like what we want to talk about and what we want to sit down, we started with like a top 3 list as kind of the basis, but we wanted to use this as an opportunity to talk about other things that maybe we're knowledgeable about or things that we want to learn more about. And so this is one of those episodes. It won't really follow the same format we've had before, but it will be broken into 3 parts, and we'll have 3 different alcohols to be trying while we're going. We're going to keep that consistent because we just like trying new alcohols, I think.
Yep.
So before we get into what we're actually talking about today, we'll do a brief introduction of what we're drinking and why you've chosen these alcohols.
And why I wasn't part of it
yeah,
for the first time.
So this is me going off on my own and just picking something. So we're going to talk about my Navy life on a submarine. And so I said, well, I'm going to try to get 3 nautically themed beers to drink. And so I have no idea how any of these taste. They're basically randomly selected. I just like the names. So I said, hey, that looks like a cool bottle. So that's what we did it. And it is very close to that because this one in particular, there was another one that was called from Port City that I almost picked also. I just thought the bottle looked better. So Narwhal is a I think it's a fish or mammal. I think it's a mammal. Anyways,
It's like a big whale.
it's like a big whale. But anyways, there was a submarine called the Narwhal, and so that's why I picked it eventually. The other thing is that I love stouts and darker beers, and so we're going to start off with one of my favorites. So we'll see how it goes. So this is the Narwhal, and this is a stout.
All right, here we go.
Okay?
Cheers.
Cheers.
Wow.
That is really good.
Doesn't taste like I was expecting it to.
It's got more of a pale ale kind of taste to the stout. It's not as rich and as, I guess, chocolatey would be the way you would say it.
It's like not as smooth.
Yeah.
That's what I was gonna say.
It feels like it does. It's like more beer.
It's more beer. That's what I'm saying. More like an ale.
Yeah.
Not the best I've tasted.
No.
Definitely not anywhere close to like a Guinness or anything like that. But
Not bad.
not bad.
Still
No.
a stout.
It's still drinkable. So
Yeah, still drinkable.
that's the measure of acceptability.
For sure.
So kind of as a little more background on this kind of episode type, obviously Dad, our father, is going to be the focus of this episode.
Yeah.
So I think it'll be more of a, I don't want to say like an investigative journalism kind of situation, but it will be more of like a Nick and I asking questions and just kind of like hopefully leading down our father into some interesting answers and just maybe some narratives and stories from his submarine days. And maybe answering some questions that you, the viewer at home, might not know or may be surprised to learn about how subs are. Granted, it's been a few years. I'm sure some things have changed.
It is crazy for me to think about it because in this room, I look over at the wall across from me, and there's a picture of my submarine. There's a picture of all my awards and medals I've gotten. Back here, you have 2 special kind of certificates. One is for going through the Panama Canal, and the other one is for crossing the equator, which are really big traditional things that if you're on a ship you would do, not just a submarine, but just any ship. When you cross the equator, you go from a polywog to, I forgot the word. Anyways, but you're supposed to get your ear pierced. when you cross the equator. So if a submariner had their ear pierced, that means they went over the equator.
Did you evolve and get your ears pierced?
No, I got my one ear pierced before I went in the Navy, and at the time when I joined the Navy, you were not allowed to have ears pierced. They do now. They do allow guys to have pierced ears.
So if you get your ears pierced on a submarine, though,
it's fine.
They're okay with it?
Or it was like kind of underboard.
No. You never did it. Sailors got their ears pierced in the 17 and 1800s.
Oh.
It was not part of the modern Navy.
Oh, wait, so you're saying back in like the old days, they were like, oh, it's fine if you pierce your ears, and then when you were there, they're like, no.
Yeah, I mean, so if you think about a sailor uniform, there's a little flap on the back, and the reason for that is because sailors let their hair grow really long, and then they would use the tar that they use for rigging and stuff on their hair, and that flap would catch the tar on your hair, so your hair didn't go everywhere.
I thought it's so cats could pick up their young.
No.
All right. But before we get too ahead of ourselves, because we're already going down a rabbit hole here, we're going to break these into what we think are kind of good 3 segments, which this segment here will be before the sub and kind of like a little bit of like context, and then we'll do another drink, and then we'll have like during the sub, which I think will be the sizable, most like large chunk here, and then after the sub and how things have changed. And in between like each section, we'll have another drink.
Yep.
Because he only got us 1 bottle, so we're not drinking that much tonight.
Yeah.
So let's go ahead and kick it off. As like big context, why did you join the Navy and why subs specifically?
So, when I was at the end of my sophomore year in high school, I was 6th in my class out of 300. I was on that college path, National Honor Society, AP classes. At that time, they didn't have dual enrollment.
Yeah.
So the expectation was that you would be going off to college, and so 11th and 12th grade was really about getting your applications in and whatever. I'd also won a National Merit Scholarship through the PSAT. So I had my junior year, I had 2 offers for 12th year freshman programs for 2 colleges, Delaware, which I think was a full ride, and then there was a school down in North Carolina that wanted me to go to it. So I was on that path, and when I started my junior year, I said, I absolutely hate this. I came from a very poor background, and I had always worked from the time I was 14. I'd worked at a Bressler's Ice Cream, and at 15 I worked at Baskin Robbins when we moved to Virginia. So I was always working, and I was tired of school. I was really tired. So I took this thing called the ASVAB, which is the Armed Services Vocational Aptitude Battery, which is a bunch of tests. And you basically, in order to get into the military, you have to be in the 25th percentile. So top 75% of the people taking the test. I made greater than 99 percentile. And so...
is this like a written test? Is this like a Scantron?
It's a very unique test. So like there was a bunch of different sections, and it basically aligned with what your professional aptitude was for. So there was, if I remember correctly, there was a math section, there was a vocabulary section, but then there was also boxes laid flat. And if you folded them, what shape would they go to 3-dimensionally?
Oh, we did those tests in Gifted.
Yeah. And then there was also you had 1 minute to fill in the circles as fast as you could, and you basically they gave you 100 circles to fill in. You had 1 minute, and you tried to get as close to 100 as possible. If you got 100, that means you could do office work, transcriptional work.
Interesting.
So there was a lot of different sections to it. I think it was like 7 or 8. Don't do that. But anyways, I scored.
Don't quote you.
Don't quote me, because that was a couple years ago.
Yeah. It's been 1 or 2 years.
So
both of your children are older than 18 now.
Yeah. So to give you an idea, I took that in 1982.
Yeah, I wasn't alive.
That was a couple years ago.
I also surprisingly wasn't alive then either.
So anyway, because of that, all 4 armed services reached out to me and said, "We'd like for you to join." And I was sitting there going, "Well, what am I going to do?" And the Navy guy said, "Look, we've got a great program, nuclear power on submarines. This is our most elite program that we have for someone that's really smart." And I had known a guy who graduated 2 years before me that had gone in the nuclear power program. And so I said, "Well, I'll go talk to you guys." And my dad was in the Navy and retired after 22 years. The funny thing about it was he retired in 81. So in 82, he was with me when I was visiting these recruiters. And it was sad. So
It was sad.
it was sad. So I went to go talk to the Navy guy, and the Navy guy was talking to someone else. So my dad's like, "Well, let's go talk to everybody else." So I talked to the Marine guy, and I said, "Well, the Navy's offering me, this nuclear power submarine. There was a lot of advantages to it. You got automatic promotion and all this stuff." And I said, "So what does the Marines have?" And they said, 3 meals a day.
Oh no.
It's like, that's interesting, but probably not where I want to be.
Wow, good sales pitch.
You're like, the other people aren't gonna feed me 3 meals a day.
So the Marines were selling their image of what they were. They were going to be the elite fighting unit that was going to be in the front. So that was, they were looking for a certain type of character and personality to do that. Not good or bad, just it was
it's a specific person.
So so we went to the Army guy next, and at the time, the Army was offering a college plan because there was no GI Bill, there was no ability to have any college supplement. But the Army said, "Look, you come in for 3 years, we're going to give you money for college." I thought, well, that's pretty interesting. But you're going to be a soldier. You're going to be a ground pounder. You're basically just going to march.
Right.
I said, "Okay." And then I went to the Air Force guy, and they're like, "Well, you don't get a good advancement. We can't promise you any schools, but you won't ever be in battle." And I was like, "You'll get to go to Korea or Germany. You'll do one over there." And I thought, well, it seems pretty nice, but not really what I was not the challenge I was looking for. So I finally got to the Navy guy, and he said, "Look, you have to pass a test in order to get accepted into a nuclear power program, and then you have an academic test, and then you have to pass a psychological test to go on submarines."
And this first test was different than the test that you already had taken.
Yes.
Was it harder?
It was much harder. So basically, the nuclear power test goes from it ended up being advanced physics, advanced chemistry, and advanced calculus questions in it.
Are these tests that you study for, or that you can study for?
You can't study for them.
No.
So the nuclear power test was 80 questions. You go in there, you take the 80 questions, and you get out. And you need to get, I think, a 72 in order to get accepted into a nuclear power program.
So you needed at least a C to make it.
No, 72 out of 80.
Oh, I'm sorry.
72 questions, not 72%.
No, not 72%. You need 72 questions out of it.
You could miss 8.
You could miss 8.
Wow.
And the hard part for me is that I had not taken physics or calculus.
That does seem like an issue.
Yeah, that would be an issue.
However, I was number 1 in my class for AP chemistry.
You were a nerd.
I was a nerd. I was also doing programming.
Oh, I thought you were about to say I was working on physics for fun. Anyways,
in my free time.
We were doing because I was really close. I was really connecting with the chemistry teacher.
Yeah.
So we were doing some nuclear physics kind of things in the classes, like extra credit. So I had some inkling of what I was doing.
You were talking about like fission and fusion in the classroom.
Well, we were talking about interactions of atoms and electrons and stuff like that. So, which is which is it's kind of where you go with it.
Yeah.
So anyway, so I got a 76 or 78. Or something.
Oh,
I thought
there
you were
it
about to
is.
say I got a 72.
No.
Let me in.
I did really well. So here I am, 17, and I joined. And you go into what they call the delayed entry program. And basically, I had braces on, and you can't go in the military with braces. So you have to wait till the braces are off. So you go into the delayed entry program for up to a year. And what that meant was that on a monthly basis, you would meet with the recruiter, and you would go down to Norfolk, or you would just meet with him and do a pizza party or whatever. And there was a bunch of us that were in delayed entry program that would do it. They also did drug tests on you to make
Right.
sure that you were clean and you were still going to graduate. Because in order to get a nuclear power program, you had to graduate.
Yeah.
This is like the image that you're building is wild to me because it's like, hey kid, come on down. Here's a pizza party. Also, pee in this cup for me. Thanks.
Yeah, it was kind of like that because you would meet at the recruiter's office, you would pee in the bottle,
Yeah.
you would pee in the thing, and then you would go. And they would have to have two guys. So that's when the Marine guy was there. The Marine guy and the Navy guy, because they were in the same office, would verify that I wasn't cheating or whatever.
Cheating on the pee test?
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Were they in the room?
It wasn't quite like that, but it was not a private situation.
Yeah.
Because like I think there was a bunch of us. There were a couple guys that didn't make it to the thing because they popped positive on the.
Were most other people like the same age? Was it just a bunch of other 17-year-olds?
In general, yes. Although there were others that were delayed entry because of they got arrested and this was their option. Rather than going to jail, they were going to join the military. But because of other extenuating circumstances or court dates, they got delayed before they went to boot camp.
Gotcha.
Okay. So anyway, so you get to my date that I'm supposed to go in. You go to Richmond. They give you one last physical. You raise your hand. You say, once again, I reaffirm, because when you get a physical. So in December of 1982, when I officially joined, I raised my hand. I got a physical. They said I was okay. There were some issues.
What do you mean by raising your hand? You're just like, are you physically able to
No.
lift your hand?
You raise your hand. You go, I solemnly
And the teacher calls
swear-"
on you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah. Pick me. You basically say, I solemnly swear that I will perform the duties of whatever.
Oh,
Okay.
is this like the liability waiver?
No, this is you.
It's like you're swearing
into the service. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so everyone does that, and you're all in a big room. So you go down to what they call the MEP station in Richmond.
Gotcha.
You get a physical, and then everyone is afterward that passed the physical raises their hand and does that together. So there was a room of I don't know 40 or 50 of us, but we were all going in at different times. Some were leaving right then to go.
Oh, wow.
Okay. So anyways, you get to your date, you get in there and they go, okay, Jeff, you are going to get automatically advanced because you're in nuclear power. So you're the most senior guy here.
Oh.
Here is the military records for the 7 guys going with you. You will accompany them on the plane. We flew to O'Hare. From O'Hare, we picked the bus and went to Great Lakes, Illinois for boot camp.
And you were like 18 at this point?
I was 18 at that time. Yeah.
Wow.
But I was a senior guy by rank. Okay, and then what you do is you get there and it's late at night. And so you're in civilian clothes and you don't bring anything else. You just bring your clothes. You don't bring anything else.
Do you bring like extra clothes or
No.
do you just bring like one pair?
What you have on is what you're doing.
Wow.
Next morning, they wake you up. They march you in civilian clothes. They cut off all of your hair. So all of a sudden you're equalized. Then you go into a building.
I think you mean all of a sudden you're bald.
Well, you're bald, but you don't remember who you were with. Everyone is so different once they go bald.
Right. It's like
it's the equalizer. Anyway, so you go to boot camp, and now it gets worse. So then you go to a building, and they're going to fit you for your uniform. So everybody strips down to underwear.
Lovely.
So you have 80 guys in underwear.
Yeah.
That's a company. And you march in front of these women as they measure you. and then they give you a tray, and you go, and you have a slip of paper, and they look at your slip of paper, and they put the size that are supposed to be in it.
Oh.
You get at the end, and they yell at you, put on one T-shirt, put on one pair of socks, put on one pair of pants, one shirt.
Yeah.
You put that on, then you march to breakfast.
Oh, ma'am, this isn't what I ordered.
Yeah.
I think the
But
menu is wrong.
You march to breakfast, and then you go to the doctor's office, and everyone gets their shots. So they line up 20 guys. You drop your pants, you bend over, and they give you a shot in the butt.
I thought that was just like a thing they did in like media. Like I didn't
No.
think
Yes, you do it. And the worst part about it is that if you don't move your muscle, your leg gets stiff. So in the morning, if you're in the top bunk, you get out, you'll see half the company collapse on the floor
got you.
because it is so sore. Because, excuse me, they're not gentle, they don't care, and they're fast. Click, it's an intramuscular shot.
Surely there are better spots, no?
No, so this particular shot, I think it's a tetanus shot, needs to be intramuscular. So that's
Yeah, but you got muscles all over the place.
yeah, but it's better. I don't know.
I don't.
Yeah,
Check in with that doctor.
it wasn't doctors. It was a bunch of female nurses that were doing
No,
it.
but the doctor, whoever's running that
Whoever
show,
signed off on that.
the nurses, they're like told, right? Like they're like, this is what we got to do, right?
Well, they just say line up, drop your pants.
That's what I'm saying. That's
Yeah,
what I'm
like,
saying.
there's someone in charge of that.
Who greenlit that?
You're a piece of meat. That's
Yeah.
I don't
it's
care.
different. I think it's different now.
I
hope.
think it's different.
I think it's different now.
I'm pretty sure I see like you like have your arm you like roll up your sleeves. And
Well,
then
they
like,
do that. You roll up both sleeves and you get shots in both arms also.
Oh, so you're just like boom, boom, and in the tushy.
Yeah.
1, 2, 3.
Yeah. Oh,
I think there was
he's-
5 or 6.
Okay,
It's
so-
like there's 7 of them.
There's a bunch of shots.
Any
Anyway,
available pieces.
so anyway, after that, then I went through boot camp, and then I went to my trade school, and I was a machinist mate. So I learned how to do the trade of a machinist mate.
Mm-hmm. What is a machinist mate?
So in nuclear power, there's three ratings, 3 jobs:
Mm-hmm.
a machinist mate, an electrician's mate, and electronic technician (ET).
Yeah.
So a machinist mate (MM) will do all of the steam part of the engine room. They do all the mechanical part of the engine room.
Okay.
Okay, it's inside the engine room and also inside the reactor room. So all the mechanical parts of the reactor they also work on.
Is this something you chose, or was this like they're like based on your test results you get this?
It's a combination. So the test results made me eligible for doing an ET, an EM, or a machinist mate, but they want older people to do the ET role because that's the reactor operator.
Okay.
They're the ones that are actually moving the
They're like, we don't want an 18-year-old to be messing
well,
with a
I mean,
nuclear reactor.
there are some 18-year-olds, but if you've got any college, because a lot of guys there were guys going into the enlisted that had 4-year degrees.
Mm-hmm.
Usually that means you're going to be an officer, but there were some enlisted guys that had a lot of education, 1 or 2 years. Anyway, so you do the trade school.
Yeah.
Then you go down to nuclear power school, and basically that's a 6-month academic school. You take basically 3 classes a day. You're basically taking 3 tests a week. You're spending a minimum of 2 hours every night studying, and you go from basic arithmetic up to nuclear physics.
I don't want to judge, but you started this off being like, I was done with school.
Yeah. You're like, oh no, I didn't realize.
And this sounds like school.
It is school, but I was getting paid to go to school.
That is nice.
I was in
It's pretty
Orlando.
good.
I was in Orlando, where the drinking age was 18.
Sure.
Oh, back in the.
Oh, hold on.
Sure.
Florida was one of the few states that held off raising it to 21.
Makes
Yeah,
sense.
yeah,
Okay.
that's Florida.
Hold on, there's another part.
Yeah.
Orlando was also the place for the women's boot camp.
Okay.
Okay.
So
Well,
every Friday
we don't need to.
So,
Anyway.
So you go to nuclear power school, and then after that, you go to a privately run reactor and learn how to operate a reactor. And then you go to a submarine.
Wait, I'm sorry. When you say privately run reactor, you're saying like a civilian owns a
It's not
reactor?
owned by the government.
Kind of.
Oh.
Okay. So when I was in, there was 3 places you could go. You could go to Connecticut, Groton, Connecticut, and that was run by a company called Combustion Engineering because they were one of the first developers of reactors. I went to one in upper state New York, which was run by GE because GE's plants in Schenectady, and all of the
Okay, General Electric's like whole repertoire of things that they do.
it is, but to give you an idea, the submarines that were being built at that time were GE reactor plants.
Okay.
Okay,
Gotcha.
and then in submarines, in surface boats, they were being built by Westinghouse, much larger and different reactors because they were for aircraft carriers, and they were doing training in Idaho. So I went to upper state New York and got through that. Then I reported to my first submarine.
And then you finally made it to the submarine.
And that so I joined in October of '83. I went to boot camp.
Yeah.
I got to my first submarine July of '85. July of '85. So it took you basically did schooling for 2 years.
Wow. Okay, so yeah, you started this by no schooling, ended up doing schooling for 2 years. My question is, by the time you got to the submarine, what were the expectations that you had about like living on a submarine? Because I'm sure there's training, there's things that you've gone over, but you haven't actually been on the submarine. Did you have any sort of like big expectations about how submarine life would be?
No, I think that the only thing that only thing I knew was really World War II movies, and I knew that the submarines that were being built at the time that I went in were very different.
Oh my God, I'm gonna talk to Sean Connery.
Yeah. Well, so Hunt for Red October
He's waiting
hadn't
here to shake my hand.
Hunt for Red October hadn't come out yet. So
It's even worse.
So to think,
who's this random guy shaking my hand?
so to give you a perspective of size, and I know we're coming up on the end here of the first session. A World War II submarine was about 100, 150, 200 feet and had 40 guys on it. Mm-hmm. The new submarines were 400 feet long, had 125 to 150 guys on it. Mm. So, and there was 3 decks. In the World War II submarines, there was 1 deck. So in a modern submarine at that time, there was 3 decks. So this is 30-foot diameter interior walls.
Yeah.
So it's just a different scale.
It doesn't sound that big.
We'll talk about that.
Yeah, I was like, we'll talk about that in a second here. We're going to start pouring the next drinks, and when we come back, we'll have more to talk about. See you in a second here. And we're back for our next section here. We've got some new alcohol in front of us, and normally I'd be looking over to Nick, but Dad, you picked all of these.
I do feel at a loss.
So this one was unique. Number one, it's in a can, which is not always my favorite.
It's not ideal.
There's so much like disdain when either of you say a can.
But anyways, I thought it was interesting. Once again, we talked about boot camp. This is Great Lakes Brewery, and it's the Edmund Fitzgerald, which is a famous ship that sunk in I think it was Lake Michigan. And there's been a lot of folklore around it and people hunting for it and whatever. Once again, it's another dark. This is a porter.
Wait, are you telling me they didn't find it?
They have not found it.
Oh my gosh.
It's a big lake.
It's
really
5 big lakes, but yeah. It's a big
Wait,
lake.
they don't know which lake it is?
There's 5 Lake Michigans?
No. Anyways, okay.
Anyways, cheers.
Cheers. Once again, it's not as strong as I'd like it to be.
I feel like this one has a similar taste to the last one, honestly.
It's lighter.
It's lighter, and I don't know. I feel like this is like the time where you chose the drinks less on like the interesting flavors,
right,
and more on the actual like branding of it.
Right. It was more a branding one. So
yeah, why doesn't this taste like salt water?
I was hoping for like maybe a little something. You're like, whoa.
Well, if I had my choice, I would have probably picked one of the ocean aged whiskey.
Oh,
the
yeah.
barrel.
Yeah,
This
like
shit-
Jefferson, and there was that Japanese one we saw also. I thought that would be interesting. But
Maybe if we do another one, we could have all three.
anyways, all right. So one of the things that we did not talk about
Yeah.
was how do you get on submarines?
Mhm.
Because I kind of glossed over that and went to boot camp, and all of a sudden I went to a submarine. Well, in order to be on a submarine, there's a couple of things you have to do. Number one, you have to volunteer for it. And believe it or not, every time I went to a new school or place, and also every month, they asked to re-verify that I wanted to be on submarines.
Is that part of like the mental analysis that they do?
It is part of that because
I feel like you got to be a little crazy to be like, yeah, put me in a box in the ocean.
Put me in
me
a
in a-
box, drop it down 300 feet.
put me in a tube, and they want to make sure. Okay, so in general, the military really doesn't care how you feel, but in this case,
I feel like it probably has changed too.
in this case, they do care how you feel about being in a submarine underneath the water. Because you talked about it. 30 feet doesn't seem like a lot. The other thing with submarines is that when they build them, they forget to put beds in there. So you're really, the machinery takes up the majority of the space of the submarine. So the space that you have for people is very limited, right? Because it's a war machine first,
Yeah.
and it carries people with it.
Yeah.
All right. And so they always tried to verify that you want to do it. And then one of the oddest ones is that you take a psychological profile. It's a written test.
Yeah.
And then you talk to a psychologist afterwards or a psychiatrist.
That's the oddest test that you have?
Well, the one was,
This guy just kept asking, "Are you sure you want to be locked in a metal tube with 169 guys for months on end?" And I just didn't get it.
yeah. What, are you sure? The reason that this is a funny test is because you go through these questions, and they're geared toward trying to understand your biases and how you looked at. Like one of the questions that I always remember is, it's a comparison. It's like a boat captain is to a train captain as an airplane pilot is to what? And the options were a bunch of different things, and one of them was a bus driver. Okay, and if you had biases, you could never think of an airplane pilot as a bus driver. You would pick one of the other categories, which showed that you had a bias that a bus driver was not really driving, not really.
Not like a captain of their own ship.
Yeah.
Is it like you think less of it? It's just like
you think less of it.
You think that the pilot is just a like more
Correct,
like higher status,
and that was kind of how the questions were, except for the last question. The last question was on the last page. You get to the last page, it's blank, except for the question at the top. And the question at the top is,
please write your name.
the question. No, worse. The question at the top was, draw a nude person.
no.
Yes.
Why?
So
Yeah. You.
so
Like,
I went.
all those years of art school finally paying off.
So I went up, and this is where I was baffled by this question.
Yeah.
So I went up to him and I said, "Look, I can't draw."
Please, can I switch this out for a math problem, please?
And they're like, "Just draw something." I'm like, "I can't draw. Nothing. It doesn't matter what it looks like."
Did you draw a stick person? Please, please. Did you draw a stick person?
Well, the next thing I said, "Well, should I draw a man or a woman?" Because I this is the analytical side. I'm like, I want clarification.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
You're
too vague of a question.
You're like, come on. You're like, you gave me physics questions. You gave me math questions. I want you to tell me exactly what equation am I solving right now.
So all of these tests on this exam are more psychological, right?
Yeah.
So this one is just baffling the heck out of me.
It is odd.
And so they said, well, it doesn't matter, whatever you want to draw. I'm like, I don't know what to draw.
He said, I don't want to draw.
I can't draw.
Yeah.
And they said, draw something now. That's an order.
Okay, there you go.
Yeah.
So
Stick person, please.
I drew a stick person
Let's go.
with 2 breasts. I couldn't think of anything else.
Did you get that question wrong?
Yeah, you did.
No, so afterwards they take the exam, they grade it, except for the last question. So they're going through it and they're grading it to see if there's any type of biases in what you're doing. And they said, we think that you're stable enough to be on submarines, which is a crazy thing to say anyways.
Yeah, except for this last question.
But we have a question about the last question. And I'm like, okay. So why did you draw a breast on this stick person? I said, because a stick person doesn't look like a person. So I thought if I put breast on it, it would at least look like a person.
It'd be more believable.
More believable as a person. And she's like, okay. And that was the end of the interview. That was the only psychological profile I had the whole time.
And then you got to the sub, and then 170 pictures were magneted to the side of the submarine.
All of them were on the refrigerator.
All on the refrigerator.
This is what my son drew.
And it's got your names on it. It's got their rank, and then they're like, listen, this is, you now know who you're living with.
Yeah.
I think I would like that exercise a little more.
So anyway, so I got to my first submarine, and it was the USS Honolulu, and I got there like the 2nd of July, and on July 4th, the submarine was getting commissioned, which means it was
Very patriotic.
well, it was so it was, which means that it's the first time it's actually launched. It's completed and ready to do sea trials.
Okay, so they're not like crunching. They're like, oh my God, we need to finish making this submarine before the 4th of July.
Yes, they are.
Oh, okay.
Yes, they are. And it wasn't quite ready on July 4th, but they still launched it on July 4th.
That's
Wait,
even.
no, we haven't finished the side.
We left a giant hole at the bottom.
But the crazy thing is that I was walking through the sub for the first time,
Oh, no.
and I ran into Mary,
Oh.
our cousin, who was working there as a painter.
Wait, your cousin?
Our cousin.
She count as our cousin too? Is that
Yeah.
how cousins work?
Yeah, cousins are just
Does that mean
related
she's
by.
like second cousin to
He's
us?
like second
Oh,
cousin to you
okay.
guys. But anyway, so this Mary, my cousin, actually worked at the shipyard.
Yeah. Was she building your submarine?
Yes, she was working on my
It's
submarine.
it's like walking into your apartment and they're putting down the floor and they're like, as they're handing you the keys.
But you also know the person who's putting down the floor. You're like, oh, hey, what's up?
Well, I know you're doing a good job, I guess.
Well, this is what's funny about it is I got there and they're like, we can't deal with you right now. Go away. Come back in a week.
What, were you the only one?
Yeah, because you get there as you get done with school.
Oh,
Oh,
okay.
yeah. You're like,
Well, for nukes that's out of school, there are other ratings that go through school also, and they get
Yeah.
there different. So I was reporting that day. So
As a quick tangent, just for explanation, on how I understand it, Honolulu city, right?
yeah, so
And then the naming of ships, vessels. It's cities.
Is it like hurricanes? Like, do you
No,
have
no.
Oh, is it
list?
alphabetical?
no, it's
Okay.
It's so basically every class of submarine or ship
Yeah.
has a category that they're being named. Okay, so the aircraft carriers that are coming out, the largest ships.
Named after countries.
No, they're named
Oh.
after presidents.
Oh.
So you have like the George W. Bush. You have those things. So the last,
Washington.
yeah, the George Washington, Abraham Lincoln. The submarine that I went to was the Los Angeles class, which was a fast attack submarine, and I'll explain that in a second.
Well, I'm sorry. Wait, your submarine that was named after a city is in a classification that is also named after a city.
No, it's the fast attack submarines of the Los Angeles. They call it
So Los Angeles class.
they call it the Los Angeles class
Because that was the
that
original.
That was the first one.
That was
Oh, okay,
is the
okay.
progenitor.
Oh, okay.
Okay, yeah.
And the progenitor is the beginning of the naming scheme.
So you could say that you were in a Los Angeles Honolulu.
I was
a
in
Los
a Los
Angeles class named Honolulu.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because like I talked about Norwell, there was a group of
The narwhal.
yeah, whatever.
No, nar.
Norwell.
There's no.
You're like saying a different word.
There's no.
Anyways, but like at the same time, they were building a ballistic missile submarine, and those were named after states. There was the Alaska class. So
okay, see that's making sense to me.
But the narwhal
was an old version of nuclear submarine, and they had like the Wahoo. There was a bunch of fish that.
They had like more. Well, they're named after fish. I won't say it's like more fun, but I feel like a narwhal is a really good name for a
Well,
sub.
I mean, it's like I'm going into the beluga.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, I think it's cooler if it's like the nautical. Like,
Yeah.
embrace it.
So
Was there a kraken? Because that would
there
be.
was not a kraken.
Okay, they fumbled. All right,
Yeah.
whoever.
Nessie the sea monster.
Yeah.
Nessie the
So
largest
like, but
monster.
like the submarine that I went into after the Honolulu
Yeah.
was a John Marshall, and what that one was there was a class of ballistic missile submarines that were named after famous Americans that weren't president. So it was a James Polk. I guess he was a president. James Polk, Thurgood Marshall, John Marshall.
Benjamin Franklin.
I think Benjamin Franklin actually got an aircraft carrier.
Okay, he's on the 100.
Yeah, yeah. So, but anyway, so
all about the Benjamin.
that's all about the Benjamin. Anyway, so so a fast attack submarine basically is geared toward doing missions. At the time, we were in a Cold War with Soviet Union, so we would chase Soviet subs. We would go hunting around for things. We would
For Red October.
There you go.
Basically hunt for Red October. That was a Los Angeles class submarine, the Dallas, and
A city.
a city.
There you go. There you go.
Was there a Los Angeles? Los Angeles
There was.
Angeles
The first
class
one-
Los
The
Angeles?
first one. That's the first one.
Oh, okay,
SSN 688 was the first one, and that was the Los Angeles.
Okay.
The big thing about the Honolulu was it was the first one named after a city in Hawaii.
Yeah.
Okay.
So after we did our initial trials, and you go back in and get refitted for up to date stuff,
Everyone gives you a tiki.
we
Like that you get the drinks?
We went over to Hawaii from Norfolk because we were down in Newport News
Yeah.
shipbuilding. That's when I got across the equator. That's when I went through the Panama Canal
Wow, you did all. Oh wait, you went down with the ship, right?
with the ship. The ship came through.
Sorry, that's bad.
Down with the
phrasing.
ship.
Yeah. You went to Hawaii in the sub.
In the submarine.
Okay.
Yeah. And so we were part of the Hawaii Week festival that they do every year. And we were parked in Honolulu. So we gave tours and stuff like that.
Whoa.
Nice.
And then they have a big banquet. And this is where the East Coast Hawaii thing is very different. It was formal attire, which meant khakis and a Hawaiian shirt and your best flip-flops.
Sounds good to me.
So it was kind of crazy because we were all in our dress whites for this
Yeah.
banquet, you know. But anyway, so fast attack, basically you have 125 guys. You're going out there, you're chasing, you're doing missions, you're doing things. You're basically front line. Then the ballistic missile submarine is you carry ballistic missiles on there, 16 or 24, depending on what class of submarine you were. And basically used to joke, you punch holes in the ocean not to be seen. So you go 6 knots to nowhere. You go in circles or crazy eights, whatever you want to call them, and you hide. And then you go out for 3 months, and then you come back in, and there's 2 crews, a blue and gold crew. And one crew goes out, the other one's in for 3 months, and then they switch off. And basically, they are there as prevention.
And were you saying that was your second sub that you were in?
The second sub was different.
Okay.
Was that not the ballistic?
It was, so there was a treaty called the SALT II, which was Strategic Arms Limiting Treaty or something like that.
Okay.
And so they took these ballistic missile submarine and they basically, we always say they cut the tubes out. So they're no longer a ballistic missile submarine, but they wanted to use them for something operational. So this submarine, the second submarine with John Marshall, went to a group called Special Ops. All right, and there was SEALs in there. We carried SEALs on board. We were part of the Rangers. My chain of command, rather than being all Navy, I had a Marine guy, an Air Force guy, an Army guy, and a Navy guy in my chain of command.
Yeah.
Because all 4 services worked together. And then we would do very cool operations. They were basically we need to get this many people here somewhere where no one's going to know we're going to be there.
Gotcha.
And so you don't get on that submarine unless you're recommended. So on my first submarine, the last year I was there, I got what they call a Navy Achievement Medal, which is the highest enlisted medal besides the Congressional Medal of Honor. And so I got one of those for the work I was doing on my submarine.
I was about to say, what does it take to get a medal like that?
There's two facets with it. Number one is I don't sleep well.
Yeah.
I don't sit well. So
we know that.
I volunteered for everything. So I got qualified in a bunch of different things not related to nuclear power.
Mm.
And I always just did stuff like that. And so I got to do some really cool things that were not related to being a nuke. And then as a nuke, every year you get graded on how you run a reactor, and we got an above average, which is very difficult to do. At this time, I was not an ELT, which is I wasn't a chemist. I was just a machinist mate at this time.
Yeah.
And so it was. My dad had never gotten one of these, and so when I got my first one, it was remarkable.
Yeah.
It was just incredible, and it just. So you have to do, once you do 3 years on a submarine, you go to another one. So at one point I re-enlisted. So initially you go in for 6 years. Okay. And part of that is you get another year till you get advanced to a certain level. So you go from E3 to E4, you get another year, you put another year on. And then if you re-up for 2 more years, they give you another rank. So you go to E5.
Yeah.
So basically I was, and part of my re-up was you get to choose a school to go to. And I decided to go to the laboratory technician school, which was once again back up in upper state New York, and go back to the private plant.
Yeah. The General Electric reactor.
The General Electric.
Yeah.
The crazy thing about the General Electric is that it was a shell of a submarine that they put the reactor in. So
Yeah,
you were
that makes
running
sense.
it like a submarine.
Makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense.
That gives you a more practical
training.
vision.
What I've heard now was that they actually have old submarines on piers that they train down at the Navy base.
I think that makes
That's
sense.
smart. Yeah. All right, I want to make sure that we're being cognizant of the time, and I don't want to spend I know we said this middle section is going to take forever, or it's not going to take forever. It's going to be longer than the others, but I want to be cognizant of that. So I'm going to rapid fire some questions at you, just things we were thinking about, maybe things that people have questions about, or maybe they don't know about. Do you get to look out the windows of a submarine?
It's true.
Unlike all of the movies, there are no windows in submarine. If you go down more than 50 or 60 feet, it's dark.
Mm-hmm.
There is no light. It's just there, and you're not on there to look at outside.
Yeah.
The way you see is through radar or through sonar. Okay, you're listening. You're doing passive sonar. You're listening to everything. You can hear things 100 miles away, and you're listening to the screws, being able to tell exactly what type of ship that was, what type of submarine it was, by the screw turns.
How loudly can a fish fart then?
Believe it or not, you do.
How loudly can you fart?
So in Hunt for Red October, they talk about biologics. Those are the sounds that sea creatures make in the water.
Yeah.
And that's a real thing. So I qualified as sonar tech, a sonar operator, so I was able to see it. And you basically are looking at noises and sounds and how they do it. And then you turn and you change how the angle it is against the ship, and you can tell the speed and the direction of the other craft. So it's a math problem, basically.
Oh,
Yeah.
I wanted to get out of school anyway. I got certified in all this stuff, going to school, and now I'm doing basically more schoolwork.
How do the toilets work? Is it like airplane toilets?
No, not at all. So
They don't drop it off of the bottom?
no, they don't. So toilets are really an odd thing, because what you do is the toilets are basically a steel ball. They're not porcelain.
Yeah, I can believe that.
The newer ones have porcelain,
Oh, really?
but they have a steel ball in the middle.
Okay.
So basically you pull a handle down and you drain it off, and you open this valve to run water down. Then you close the valve, run a little bit more water so there's water in there, and you shut it. And basically what you're doing is you're preventing the gases that are in the tank from coming up. So you keep water there as a trap.
Mm-hmm.
That tank gets full. Once that gets full, there's two ways to get it overboard. Okay? What you do is you isolate it, and then you can turn on a pump and pump it overboard.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? The problem with that is that it makes noise.
Right.
Okay, and you don't want to make noise. So most of the ways you do it, especially at really, because you got to remember, every 100 feet you go down is 44 pounds per square inch that you're adding on to the pressure of the seawater against the hull of the submarine.
Mm-hmm.
To easy numbers, if you go down 1,000 feet, there's 440 pounds per square inch on the hull of the submarine.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay? So in order to push something out with air, you have to do 450 pounds because it has to be higher pressure so that the water does not go into the people tank.
Right.
Yeah.
So-
Along with all of the
Other stuff.
Waste.
Yeah. So what you do is you isolate it, you pressurize the tank, you open the outside valve, and you bleed it off.
Mm-hmm.
That makes noise too, but you can do it in one big swoosh and you're done.
Right.
So you can do thermal layers and stuff like that. So that's how that works.
Okay. You're a vegetarian, pescatarian right now. What kind of food did you eat, and were you able, would you have been able to keep that lifestyle? Did you keep that lifestyle?
So I became a pescatarian when I was a junior in high school. I went to Germany for school for 6 weeks, and I was not a pescatarian.
Yeah.
Germany was not vegetarian friendly.
Yeah, since our grandmother was like every single meal must have
A meat.
a meat.
Yeah. So
But that's also like a southern thing too.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's true.
So when I went into boot camp, there was no possibility for this to occur. Basically, you ate what they put in front of you. You were always hungry. You were always eating in 2 minutes or less. There wasn't an option to do that.
Right.
So boot camp,
There's like a physical trainer, nutritionist out there cringing.
yeah,
like,
well, definitely, you should be cringing because if you were late, you would do what they call pass and review. Is you basically get your tray of food, you're eating it to the trash can, dumping it, getting back in line so you can get to your class in time.
Oh my gosh.
That's called pass and review. Anyways, when I went to Orlando, I had more control over my diet, and so I ate very little meat at that time. Occasionally, I would have meat. When I went to Saratoga Springs up there in northern New York, I rented an apartment and everything, so I had control over it at that time.
Yeah.
When I went to my first submarine has the best food. However, there is no fresh, there is no milk. It is all dehydrated and reconstituted, but it's good.
You're eating spaceman food.
Well, you weren't eating spaceman food. But like for instance, you had a guy at night that baked all the bread. So you had fresh baked bread, fresh baked cookies and cakes every day.
Oh, you got like sweet treats?
Yeah. So you basically on one of my submarines, the guy that was doing the mid-rats, the overnight cook, he wanted to get out and start a cookie company.
Oh,
So
that's fun.
the captain loved it, but whenever he got close to port to come home, he didn't want to be fat for his wife.
Oh.
So he took him off of the midnight cook and he put a bad cook on there for making sweets at night. Anyways, but so
It's like morale is needed on a submarine.
Yeah.
Dang, that would suck to be that one guy where you're like, you are designated the bad cookie chef.
well, a lot of chefs don't like baking.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fair.
So the bad part is that you had really good food. It was also meat based.
Yeah.
I did not eat a lot of meat. Occasionally I would have a hot dog or a hamburger, but in general I did not eat a lot of meat.
Yeah.
I did eat, at that time I was eating some chicken, but chicken has never been my favorite. So first submarine I was diminishing. When I went to school up in upper state New York, I went completely back to being a vegetarian pescatarian, and on my second submarine I was completely pescatarian. That was bad because as the tour goes longer, so in one of them we were out to sea for 79 days straight underneath the water.
Yeah.
We were supposed to pull in at day 45, so we were stretching food to begin with. We were out of food, about to pull in the Philippines, and a typhoon hit the Philippines. So we had to pull out and wait 2 days before we could pull into the Philippines. So rather than 4 meals a day, they were down to 2 meals a day. We were eating pancakes because we didn't have any flour left to do bread. And we were eating dehydrated cottage cheese that they reconstituted, which is just horrible.
Oh
We used to joke the cans sound like maracas because of the cottage cheese.
And you started eating the floors.
We came in there. I think there was 1 case of pork butt left in the freezer, and that was it.
Okay, well, this kind of quickly ties into the next thing. What was the longest that you've been out to sea for?
I think the longest I was underneath the water was 79 days.
That one time.
That was the one trip. And mainly because, like, the trip didn't go to plan and you just kept getting pushed back.
We kept getting things added to our mission. So
Yeah,
we had a mission portfolio for 45 days. The captain, we had something occur that the captain was afraid of his reputation, so he kept taking on more and more missions, and we kept getting extended more and more out.
Gotcha. All right. Really quickly, you mentioned before submarines were built to not have sleeping people in mind. How did you sleep? You got bunk beds, hammocks?
They're basically 3 high bunk beds.
King size beds?
Yeah. Why don't we talk about this with the next drink?
Okay.
This is about to be a long
This
story.
is a little bit longer.
All right, then one last question. Did you drink grog while you were on the submarine?
There is no alcohol allowed on an American
No,
submarine.
but like,
There is no alcohol allowed.
Did
on
you-
it. No.
what kind of
You get caught drinking, you get court-martialed, and you go to jail for years.
what kind of?
No,
All
no,
right.
no.
Well, with that, we will grab our last drink and we'll be right back. We'll see you in a second. Hey guys, welcome back. We are here for the third and final section. We've got a new alcohol in front of us after leaving off on the no grog for the sailors here. Dad, what are we drinking here?
So this one is, I do not know French, but this means the end of the world.
That was Belgian.
It is a Belgian beer, but it's the French language.
La fin du monde.
Yeah.
Oh.
The end of the world.
As our mother corrected me so viciously.
But
in French.
I love the title of it. There was another one that they had, which was like The Voyage was their other one.
That's a fun one.
That was a fun one, but I just love the end of the world because I think that when you're on submarines, you're underneath the water. At that time, there was no way to be connected with anybody.
Yeah.
So my parents, because I was single at this time, my parents did not know where I was, did not know anything about what I was doing. They just knew I was out to sea.
Yeah.
And when anything happened in the world, there was always a chance that we were there.
Mm-hmm.
And so when we talk about me taking that longest trip,
Yeah.
at the same time, a destroyer in the Arab Sea got hit with a missile. It's the USS Stark. And so all my parents knew was that I wasn't supposed to be out to sea at this time. We were supposed to be in port somewhere. And I was gone for almost 3 months.
Yeah.
Which is crazy, what your parents are going through. My dad, who had always been on surface boats, could always communicate. I'm fine, whatever. We just did not have that opportunity.
Yeah.
So, anyways.
Yeah.
On
On
that
that
note-
Anyway,
note.
the end of the world. No, like it's. I don't know. I feel like the end of the world. I imagine it's like the old like sailors.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. It is.
Sort of like.
Whenever you travel, when those explorers went out, they were going to the end of the world because
Yeah.
they were going to go off the edge.
It's like a call. you
Yeah.
know, it's like we're gonna find the end of the world.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the explorer attitude is part of it.
Yeah. All right.
Did you feel that explorer attitude?
Yeah, I did. I mean, I think that the reason I joined was for that explorer attitude and also the sense that I should serve. You know, definitely a Belgian ale.
I was about to say the same exact thing.
I would say they're more fun on the branding and the marketing than the actual drinks. And it's because, if you can gather from our previous ones, we like the weird. We
Yeah.
like the oddities. We like to try things and taste things that like we're like, this sounds weird. I'll probably like it.
Yeah, I mean, we
Or we won't.
Or
'cause
we
it's
won't.
the creamsicle.
that was worth tasting though. That was worth tasting.
I don't know if it's worth tasting. We needed to taste it.
We needed to taste it.
Because, yeah.
Because there's an explorer in all of
Yeah.
us.
We need to know the truth.
Yeah. So anyway, so one of the questions, the two questions that we kind of left hanging on the last segment was the grog thing. So every Navy in the world, except for the U.S. Navy, allows drinking. So we would partner up with English submarines, and you'd go on there, and they had a full pub inside their submarine. So you would go in there, and you would get your beer.
You know, I'm imagining, Nick and I were just at a concert, and we were just at an English pub before going to the concert. I'm imagining that they have like metal submarine, and then they've got like the wood, the backdrop, and then just like a bunch of random like trinkets and flags.
They would have flags.
Keep calm and
trinkets.
carry on.
Yeah, it was a true traditional pub.
They have a random guy tending. He's not part of the military
He's
at
a
all.
civilian.
He's just a bartender.
He's an older guy with a towel.
and he's always cleaning a mug no matter what time of day it is. And he's just like, oh.
The difference is that because they do angles and dangles.
Yeah.
Everything's in a locked cabinet so it doesn't move around.
So what do you mean by angles and dangles?
So when you first go out to the water and you dive, they want to make sure that if we have to do like escape from a torpedo or we're trying to evasive maneuvers,
Quick actions.
that you're not making noise, because it's no use doing evasive actions if you're going to make noise, because that's how you get tracked. So what they say is they go, okay, we're doing angles and dangles, and so they'll do 30 degrees down, 30 degrees up, 30 degrees down with a 25 to the side or 45 to the side or whatever. So they're doing it, and you'll hear crashing and booming all throughout the submarine for things that weren't secured.
Do you feel that? Like
No, you don't feel that.
Is it like a roller coaster?
Oh, yeah.
For you?
No.
Yeah.
No.
Actually, I have a scar on my finger because we had done we did emergency blow.
Oh, you weren't secured.
We did an emergency blow test, and we were going very fast, full blow of the tank. So you have these air tanks that can. So it's a submarine's double hull, right?
Yeah.
So you fill out the area between the two holes with air, and all of a sudden you come up like a cork. So we did an up angle going really fast, and we blew the thing. So now we're flying up there, and literally, I was holding on to the side of a door, not feet out in the air, but almost feet out in the air.
Yeah.
And the door slammed on my hand.
Ooh.
Ouch.
Oh my gosh.
I broke my ribs underway because someone lifted up a seal lifted up
Yeah, you had to throw it in there. It was seal's
a seal
fault.
lifted up a hatch, and I ended up falling on top of him because he didn't say he was coming up.
Oh.
And so the hatch caught me underneath my ribs, and I broke 3 ribs.
Ooh.
But there's nothing you can do, and you're out to sea, so you don't do anything. You don't normally carry a doctor on a submarine.
I was about to say, do you have a doctor? But no
you don't.
doctor.
So basically, if I've told you guys this story before, one guy thought he was having appendicitis. So what they do is they put some heavy metals in you and shut down your appendix.
Yeah.
So we got into Hawaii, and he's like, "I feel great. I'm fine." He goes topside, meets his wife, and all of a sudden his appendix blows. And so they're rushing him to the hospital. If it had been, a day earlier, we would have been out to sea and no way to save him.
Oh my gosh.
Once again, the end of the world.
Yeah, yeah. Well,
We don't need to make this too grim.
No. I mean, so here's another grim thing. So,
No, wait. I just said.
he said we don't need to make it grim.
We don't need to make it
But
grim.
we can.
Anyway.
Okay, so the other thing you asked about was the birthing situation.
Sleeping.
No,
I didn't think you were being.
No, I did not ask about that. I didn't use that.
Birthing as in BERTH.
I didn't use that terminology at all.
Were there people giving birth on
No,
the submarine?
Birthing BERTH.
The appendix.
No, birthing
The appendix made birthing room.
Okay, all right. Yeah, tell us about the sleeping
No,
system.
we were talking about the pub.
The sleeping situation is, like for Los Angeles class, you carried 125. So there's 13 or 14 officers. Okay. The XO and the CO get their own staterooms. That's usually connected, and they share a shower.
What is an XO?
So you have the commanding officer, which is the CO, and then you have the
Is that the thing you add at the end of the letter? XOXO?
Yeah, it's
loves and hugs.
yeah,
and
it is
kisses.
loves and kids, and then you have the executive officer, and
Exactly.
basically, the commanding officer is the nice guy, the executive officer is the mean guy.
Oh, he's like good cop, bad cop.
It is a good cop, bad cop.
Is it like captain versus quartermaster?
No.
Oh.
So what the executive officer does is he makes sure that the ship is clean and that we run drills properly. So if you run a drill or there's a true fire, flood, whatever, the executive officer is the one on point. He's the first one there, and then you have everyone else that are there. And so the joke used to be, so I did get, for my second submarine, I got another Navy Achievement Medal because it was a 30-year submarine. I left, and it got decommissioned a month later.
Because you left?
Yeah, it was falling apart. No. But anyways, we had some, I wouldn't say major issues, but we had some issues structurally with the submarine. And the reason I got the Navy Achievement Medal was, number one, we did above average on the reactor thing exam. And at this time, I was the lead laboratory technician, which is, it's very stressful. I still have nightmares about it today, 30 years later. The other thing is that if there was ever a casualty or a damage control need, the XO and I were always the first ones there. And so I took great pride in being there. Now, I never slept, but that's how it was. I just was always there. And because if someone was going to fix it, I was ready to do that.
Right.
So if it was flooding, I had the water coming up my legs. If it was a fire, I was putting on the mask as I'm going into the smoke. It was just, there was a sense that I was going to do whatever I could to save the boat. So.
Yeah.
But anyway, so for the sleeping situation, so they build the submarines, Los Angeles class in particular, most advanced technology at the time. Everything's packed in there, and then all of a sudden they go, these people need to sleep somewhere. So you basically...
That's an engineer right there.
Yeah.
So...
Oh, wait, we need to have people living on here.
Yeah, so like I said, there's like 14 officers, so...
And then they went, oh, wait, we might need a kitchen.
Yeah. No, they put kitchens in. Kitchen and eating area was always there because food was always... They had huge walk-ins for the freezer and the refrigerator.
Oh, so the food area was bigger than the sleeping area.
Yes.
That's why I'm imagining they just like, you know what? We could just add futons and like cupboards in the kitchen and just have them.
Can't they
sleep
just
in
do like the old days and just strap hammocks across? And
Yeah, exactly.
Anyway, so you had the 14. So you basically had the executive officer and commanding officer. They had their one stateroom, which is right next to control, which is the main center of the submarine. They shared a shower. Then in the next level down, you had 4 berthing areas for officers, and there are basically 3 officers in each one. But they had their own shower in each one of those. I think it was their own shower in each one of those. And then you had another area, so that's out of 125, that's 14. Then you had another area, which was the senior enlisted guys, which are chiefs. Okay. They had their own berthing area. They had a little area where they got together, and then their beds were stacked up. And that was usually, I think that was 9 on each side, so 18 beds there. So that gets you to 100 people.
Yeah, barely.
So that's 100 people that you need racks for that don't have racks. And they put 68 in. So...
Wait a minute.
Hold on. Wait a second. I know a little something about math.
They send a lot of you all to math classes.
So how it works is that your normal rotation is you do 6 hours on watch, whatever your job is. Okay. Then you do 6 hours afterward in which you are damage control. So if something happens, you're the ones rushing to it so that the people on watch can maintain their job. Okay, and then you do 6 hours of sleep. So you're up 12, down 6.
Wait a second.
No. Wait.
That's not a full day.
Wait a minute.
That's only an 18-hour day, but that's how it works.
Yeah.
Up 12, down 6.
I guess days just don't mean anything if you don't have a sun.
So as soon as you close the hatch, you adjust the time to Zulu time, which is Greenwich Mean Time.
Okay.
So you could be pulling out at 7 o'clock in the morning. As soon as you shut the hatch, it's 1 o'clock in the afternoon.
Okay.
It just automatically becomes that because you don't see the sun.
Right.
Yeah.
If you're on the other side of the world, it's the exact opposite. It's 1 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
Right.
Anyway, so what they did was they would put 3 people in 2 racks, in 2 beds.
Cozy.
And what you would do is each one of the 3 people had a different time when they were on watch.
I was about to say, so you never really had like a bed to call your own.
Right,
You're like, these 2 are mine sometimes.
Yeah, so it ended up working out you would alternate beds basically.
Yeah.
So every 18 hours you would alternate a bed sometimes. If you're running drills or you had stuff to do. In general, I would do 3 watch rotations, which would be 40 hours. And then I would go to bed.
I think OSHA would like to have a word.
It just because I could never get into the 18-hour one.
Yeah.
And when I got to the third watch, I had to be up anyways.
Yeah.
And how it worked is that you would do, so to give you an idea, so you would do midnight to 6 a.m. Then your next watch would be 6 p.m. to midnight. Then your next one would be 6 a.m. to noon.
Yeah, like your circadian rhythm is like completely off.
Right. So you're constantly nowadays they do go to 4-hour watches and they go to 6-hour watches, but the 8-hour watches 3 times a day. So you're doing the same time, same 8-hour watches.
But with the 8-hour break included now instead of the 6.
Instead of 6. So you're doing 16 and 8.
Yeah.
Which is the 24.
Which is a 24.
I feel like that should have just been the
standard. So here's the problem.
Yeah.
Okay. Once again, it's a crazy world. So when you're getting ready for qualifications or you're about to go on a mission where there's a possibility where you may need to have extra damage control expertise.
Mm-hmm.
You would do 12 to 6 for the mid-watch, right? midnight to 6 a.m.
Yeah.
Then you would break the next 12 hours into 3 4-hour watches.
What?
So that all 3 watch sections
are awake and on damage control.
Yeah, awake and doing the things. Because if you have a drill, everyone has to get up anyways.
Yeah. Oh my god.
Okay, so they're like, okay, your head's hitting the bed. You know, you took like maybe like 20 minutes to get ready.
When you get off watch, you usually eat, and then you have to go back and clean for an hour.
Okay, so basically, it's instead of 6 hours, it's now like 4.5.
So basically, what you would do is like if you did the midnight to 6.
Yeah.
Your next watch would be from 2 to 6 in the afternoon.
Okay, but you don't get to bed until 8:30.
Till 8:30 or 12 or 9 o'clock at night, and you still have to. So the other thing is you still have to qualify all these watches. You don't just go on watch. You have to fill out these qualifications and be qualified to do this job.
Okay.
Well, yeah. So like my question is, right? Watch is when you're doing your job, right? So like when you're working in like the nuclear, like
in the engine room,
in the engine room, that's like your job. And then you said there's a job where you're like on call. What are you doing while you're on call?
You're studying for your next watch position because so like for machinist mate there was 3 watch positions that were in spaces, and then you had an engine room supervisor, which was a machinist mate that wandered around to help out. Okay, and then after that you went to engineering watch supervisor, which is a senior role that all of the positions into, and they're over all of them, the electricians and everything like that. And then after that, you could be an engineering officer, which means that you would be in the control room managing the people that are actually controlling the reactor and the electric plant.
So are you like shadowing these people?
You're shadowing. You have a qualification card, so you have to do these operations. So it'd be so like if you're in the lower level was the first position you did. So things that you would have to do is you'd have to clean the oil filters. You'd have to be able to start up and shut down the engine room. Okay, so you would have all of these things that you needed to do. On top of that, you're also qualifying for submarines. All right, in order
to like stay on them.
Yeah, so in order to be on a submarine, you have to get your dolphins, what they call their dolphins, which is a pin that says, "I know every job on a submarine." And you go to each one of these jobs and you learn what they do.
So even when you are not specifically working your job, aka being on watch, you are going around and doing other people's jobs anyway.
You're learning that because if all of them got wiped out,
Yeah.
you would need to be able to step in.
Mm-hmm.
Here's the other thing. They always make you do a rotation in the mess hall too. So you do 4 to 6 weeks working in
How to cook?
in the kitchen,
Yeah, well,
basically serving and washing dishes.
Did
Yeah,
you
that's good life
get your
skills.
dolphins?
Yeah, I got my dolphins. You have 1 year to get it.
And then what?
Then you're qualified on submarines.
Well, what if you don't get it in a year?
They kick you off.
Whoa.
Yeah, you have to get your dolphins.
oh.
And the biggest test of the dolphins is at the end of it, you have 3 people that ask you questions about anything on the submarine.
And you have to answer them
You
to
have
your
to
best
answer-
ability.
You have to answer them correctly, not to the best of my ability.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, yeah.
There's one other test they do because oxygen goes away when there's a fire in a submarine. As soon as the fire starts, oxygen goes away.
Yeah.
Okay, because you're in a contained space and doing it. You wear these things called EABs. They're in your bunks. There's one in there, and then these manifolds
There's one. There's one.
in each bunk.
In each
Which hold
is
3 people?
Only 68.
Yeah, but there's only
One sleeping at a time.
one sleeping at a time. But like in the dining room, all of the benches have EABs. In
Oh,
them.
okay.
They're all over the place.
Okay.
I would hope.
Yeah.
There's also manifolds all over the place. And if you go on the floor, if you see a rectangle, that means the manifold is parallel to the rectangle and pointed down. If there's a triangle, that means it's at some sort of odd angle.
Okay.
So if it's smoky, you're not going to see anything.
Yeah.
Right.
So what they do is they put you in the very front of the boat, in the torpedo room, and you have 2 minutes with it taped off to get to the screw in the back where the engine room is.
Mm.
Now you got to remember
They
there's-
give you like a little obstacle course.
don't have to because there's hatches, and you're
It's
holding
already
your
a maze on its own.
breath. You're going through that. You're totally blacked out. You can't see anything. You're trying to get this to the
Oh, when you say taped off, you mean that they like taped the mask part, like
so it's all black.
So they put like gaff tape over the
Yep.
front of it, so you can't see anything. So basically, they gave you like blind goggles. So
Good luck. Get to the end of the boat.
You get to the end of the boat, and halfway down, you'll see guys that are like gasping for air, trying to figure out where the manifold is.
Oh my gosh.
And so sometimes they do throw in like, okay, this hatch or ladder is not usable. You can't use that ladder.
Yeah.
So that's when you also have to be familiar with all the jobs, but also be super familiar with the boat.
the
But
boat,
now,
yeah.
once again, we talked about this. It's only 3 stories,
Yeah.
right?
Only 3 stories.
But
to
it's not
memorize.
that big because
So
of
the-
those 3
it's pretty-
stories. It's
No, that- but
30 in diameter.
the
Yeah.
the back 2/3 of it is the engine room,
Right.
and the engine room only has 2 decks,
Right.
an upper level and a lower level.
So you're basically just trying to get to there, and then you're pretty good.
No, because there's less manifolds, because it's more machinery back there.
Right. Okay, of course.
No, because you die back then.
So once again, you're just trying to get there, and
Yeah.
usually 2 minutes is more than enough time. But
All right.
I mean, no one's stopping you.
Yeah.
no one's stopping you because they really want you to pass. They do want you to get your dolphins,
Yeah.
but it's a big deal.
Yeah. I mean,
It's a
it
big
sounds
deal.
like it.
Yeah.
I wanted to talk about after the sub. I know like it's really interesting to like hear these stories. But like afterwards, like
How long were you in the Navy on subs?
Yeah.
So I joined in December of '82. I went to boot camp in October. I went to my first submarine in July, and I got out in December of '91. So it was continuous sub duty. There was 6 weeks where I went to school in the middle there, but it was basically from 85 until 91. I was on submarines continuously. I did 2 submarines. At that time, I was selected for E7, which is a chief, so it would be a senior enlisted guy. The problem was that at that time I was considered 9 years in
Yeah.
because of the delayed entry program and all that.
Right.
And they said, okay, in order to get chief, you have to do 2 more years. That pushes you over the 10-year point, and you can retire from the Navy at 20 years. Now, it's not
Yeah.
they're dog years. There's no doubt about it. You are beat to heck. And so
I mean, you just said you were doing 40-hour shifts.
yeah,
And then what? Sleeping for 6 hours? Yeah.
5
No,
to 6.
less, because
Yeah,
we talked about
less.
you have an hour to clean up and
Yeah.
da da da.
So I loved it.
Yeah.
It was a
I think you have to. You have to love it.
it's a craziest thing. You just absolutely love it.
Yeah. You're right.
I don't know how to explain it, but I loved it. I got to see so many places in the world because I was on the East Coast and the West Coast. So I got to see Asia and Europe and Africa and South America. I got to see so much stuff. But at the end of it, I knew I was self-aware enough to know about with 2 or 3 years left, I really stopped drinking because I knew that I was drinking a lot because we would go in port and just get plastered.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is never a good thing. I knew that from a personality standpoint, I was going down a bad path. And I said, so I went to it was funny. I went to the commanding officer and I said, look, I thought I'd tell you first. Because I just won the Navy Achievement Medal, my second one.
Yeah.
I was selected as the top first class person, so they ranked the first class as the E6s.
Yeah.
And that's part of the reason why I got selected for E7. Got selected for E7. So I was on the path of a career guy. And I said, I thought I would tell you first that I'm not going to re-up. I really want to get my college. I want to get my chemical engineering degree. And I really want to, I don't think at 37 I could do it. At 27 I can.
Yeah.
And so I got out. The hardest part, so they tell you when you get out, here's resources for you. The average life expectancy at that time for someone getting off submarines was 5 years.
Wow.
Suicide by car, by motorcycle,
Right.
whatever it was.
Yeah.
When you're on submarines, the things you do have consequence. As soon as you get out, nothing you do has consequence.
The gravity is not the same.
It's not at all. I mean, there is none.
Yeah.
I was making decisions that could have cost a whole submarine lives.
Mm-hmm.
I got out, and there was nothing.
Yeah.
There's a void that cannot be explained. I cannot even imagine the guys that were coming from Iraq or Afghanistan, because that void is even worse, because they did things that morally they may not believe in.
Right.
And they were coming back and having to live with those decisions.
Yeah.
I never had to make that moral decision.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that I came back and I was lost. Now, we always say that God has a plan that you don't know.
Yeah.
Within a month of getting in, I met your mother.
Yeah.
It's true.
And
When you're going to school,
We're going to
and you
school.
met
Going to
in
school.
chemistry.
chemistry class. Woo.
And you had
the
Chemistry.
actually,
I was about to say like.
actually,
give us like an analytical response.
Actually, Mom said I was the most obnoxious person she'd ever met.
Yeah.
But I think that
That's first in some place.
yeah. So I think that is what saved me, because Mom can tell you the person I was when I started school was not a nice person.
Yeah.
I just wasn't that. I wasn't a nice person. It was. I had ideas of what I wanted to do and what I wanted to be, and I knew that it was going to take me just turning 180 degrees out. So it was a weird thing.
Well, we're just about at the end of our time here. Do you miss being on subs?
I do. I loved the people I was with. I loved what we did. I loved that what I did had consequence.
Mm-hmm.
I really felt we talked about this. The reason I went in the Navy was because the adventure side of it, but also I had this deep sense that I needed to serve, and part of that serving was this.
Yeah.
I could have been the Peace Corps. It could have been anything, but I felt like as a citizen of the United States, I needed to serve.
Yeah.
And this is how I served.
Well, I mean, if you want, we can trade bunks. And,
We can rotate around.
Yeah, we can rotate around a
We
little
can
bit.
find a small room, I think, and just put a little bunk in there.
All right, really quickly, because we're just about out of time here. What was everyone's favorite drink of the night? We'll start with Nick, and we'll end with you, Dad.
I think I'm going to go with the Great Lakes one, the can one. I think that's crazy.
Belgian is my favorite.
I think I'm going to go with the Belgian because the other two darks disappointed me.
Okay.
Fair enough. Well, thank you all so much.
Thanks.
We'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.